Hello everybody and welcome back once again to Manga Goblin. I'm Trix of course, and today we're going to look at the second book that you need for Necromunda, which is basically the rulebook. This is the 3rd edition rulebook. Now, from what I've been able to find out, there is a 4th edition which started with the release of the recent Gang War box. Now, they haven't updated the rulebook itself apparently, so the rulebook you can still use. So I'm not sure which is what's true actually about the 4th edition thing, except for the book in Gang War and the House of Faith books are technically 4th edition of Necromunda. Okay, so let's look at the rulebook. The rulebook is simply, you get a little bit of background information from page 4 to page 28. The rules go from page 40 to page 97. That includes all the psychic powers, the Dominion campaign, fighters and characteristics, general principles with the dice, visibility measurement, etc, etc. From page 28 to page 40 you get a timeline. The timeline's okay. It's just a very generic timeline that they seem to publish in these books that gives you little bits of background information without revealing too much about the game itself. Although there are parts that you can work from. For example, each of these books, each of them, especially the house books, tends to have a timeline for the various gangs. So it starts up in the Dark Age of Technology in this book, Age of Imperium, and it goes right up until 999 M41, Shadows over Primus. Once you get past all the timeline and the rules, you get some Sector Mortalis scenarios, which are some taken from other things and some completely new ones. This book itself suffers from the same problem the previous book does, that it's half the rules to use the game properly. Now, if you have, for example, you have the old Gang War books, you can use this perfectly fine with them. It also goes into skills for the gangs. It gives you some Arbitrator tools, which are basically someone running a campaign can, well, set up scenarios and stuff and do gang territory wars and stuff like that. If you want to score this book, it's pretty hard, to be honest, without the other one, because simply, again, it's half of what you need, especially if you want to play, for example, the Corpse Grinders or the Arbitrators. You'd need the Book of Ruin or the Book of Judgment to use those two gangs. I have an issue with the way the Arbitrators are run in the modern Necromunda, but that's nothing that can't be fixed with simply just allowing the Arbitrator himself to use them. I'd much prefer how they were used originally in the old Necromunda, as they were a faction the Arbitrator could use to challenge higher ranked gangs, for example, without using spires or without using some of the other higher class gangs. For example, some of the ones in the old Gang War magazines, they were a little bit broken, especially the vampire gangs, especially the rollerblading gangs. They were a little overpowered. Ash Waste Nomads were extremely tough to fight, especially if you did the Ash Waste campaign, because they could have vehicles. And if you had a gang out there without vehicles, they were kind of tricky to fight with them. That's it. That's the Necromunda rulebook. There are 188 pages, so you're getting 28 more than Gangs of the Underhive. But again, it's suffering from the same problems. It's suffering from the same similar thing. It is very pretty. There's some decent artwork, but some of the artwork is repeated from earlier things. For example, the Goliath guy pops up quite often, and the Escher characters pop up quite often. You can check them here. In conclusion, if I was going to give this score, I would give it a 7. It's not as good as Gangs of the Underhive, simply because Well, this basically just gives you weapon stats and arbitrator tools and how to play the game. You can find those rules in other boxes. It's not something that you would need, for example, if you had the Gang War box, or if you would have the old box with the arbitrators and the Corpse Grind Cult, or you had the very first edition, well, 2017 Necromunda with the two gangs, the Goliaths and the Escher. But saying that one, the Necromunda Rulebook is a bit better than the rules in the very first 2017 edition. So there is that to it. You do need this book though if you want to run a campaign. You do need this book for skills and stuff, unfortunately. Unless you have the House of books, which contain those anyway, and they contain a lot of the weapons charts and stuff and some scenarios. So you don't need this book. You only need one person in your group really to have this book, and it's better off if it's the Arbitrator. I mean, of course, if everyone has it, that's good, but there we go. Anyway, that's it. That's the quick rule. That's a quick look at the Necromunda Rulebook. It's not as big as the other video, so because there's not much to talk about, honestly. It's just simply a rulebook with some scenarios. Thank you everyone for watching. Take care of yourselves and bye bye.